Alright, I'll make a vintage story video. Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? For 2 years now, I've been getting requests to play Vintage Story, and for 2 years now, I've had the game downloaded, sitting over in the corner, alone, silently begging for me to click on it. Ladies and gentlemen, I finally clicked on it.
We got him.
This video covers my first initial experience with Vintage Story. I'm going in completely blind, starting with absolutely zero game knowledge, and seeing just how much I can learn given my experience with other survival games, and a willingness to consult the game's in-game guides. Before spawning in, I was given the option to sculpt my own character, as well as choose a starting class. There are 6 different classes to choose from, all of which have their own positive and negative traits. Except for the commoner, who just exists. It's basically the human fighter of Vintage Story. But after scrolling through the other classes for a bit, I found myself staring down the commoner class, at least for my first initial playthrough. Upon spawning into the world for the first time ever, I got to work grabbing up any nearby materials. Things like flint and rocks that littered the grass around me. And I gotta say, nothing has felt more peaceful than taking in the Minecraft aesthetic with what I can only describe as one of the best soundtracks I have ever associated with a video game. Shit, the OST for Vintage Story is so good that I went out of my way to purchase the entire thing just to use in this video. Anyway, pressing H opens up the survival handbook, which includes literally anything and everything you could possibly need to help learn the basics of the game. From tutorials to game and crafting mechanics, progression guides, and specific item breakdowns. Overall, most of my first day was spent getting familiar with the world. I continued looting things off the floor, discovered water, and even came across a magic conch shell. I also discovered a few cranberry bushes that I looted 7 berries off of, providing me with my first food source. Since I have no idea where anything else is yet, I figured the best thing I could do would be to mark the berry locations on the map, so worst case, I could always come back and harvest a fresh batch in a few days. Is that a bear? By the afternoon, I'd managed to find this massive pond with a few chickens nearby. Now this seemed like as good a place as any to try napping, so let's get to it. Flint tools are the de facto starter items in Vintage Story. You can start crafting flint items by placing a napping surface on the ground via control and right click. From there, you get a small crafting menu showing your options. I chose a knife and get presented whatever this is. Now, don't let this scare you. Yes, you have to hit all the individual squares to craft your item manually, but you can also just do the outline and break off the extra portion, speeding up crafting and saving you a ton of time. With all that extra time, I went ahead and crafted an axe head and a spear head. Now, I just need to find a way to collect some sticks. Or, I can commit chicken war crimes. Alright, well, apparently you can't harvest the chickens when they're underwater, I guess. Or at least I need my knife blade to have a handle before it's considered a knife. After collecting some sticks from a nearby bush, I tried for several minutes to make a spear, before having to admit that I cannot, in fact, cosplay as the outdoor boys. To make matters worse, the sun was setting, and I had absolutely no semblance of a shelter in place. Okay, figured it out, I think. Pressing E opens up the crafting menu for you to assemble items old school Minecraft style. You can find out where to place each individual item by using that handbook from earlier, and searching for the specific item you're trying to craft. In this instance, to craft a flint knife, the knife blade needs to be placed in the top left square, and the stick needs to go directly beneath it. With my new flint knife, I returned to the chicken corpses, and harvested 2 pieces of meat along with 25 feathers, meaning I might actually survive the night if I can find a way to cook this. My initial thoughts were, alright, I've got meat, I could skewer said meat on a spear and hold that over a campfire. So I used the spearhead and my final stick to craft a flint spear before setting off to find some more bushes to smack into sticks. Nope. With no shelter in place, I fell back on the good old tried and true dirt house to survive the night. That was until I discovered that mere sticks are not enough to get a fire going. Instead, you need to find a piece of driftwood, then use your axe on said driftwood to turn that into firewood, which you can then combine with a fire starter kit to discover what cavemen learned about tens of thousands of years ago. Unfortunately, I learned a bit too late that you actually need several pieces of firewood to actually craft a campfire. With nothing left to do but die, I found a nice patch of dirt and stared off into the stars. Okay, so first attempt ended horribly, but you know what? I learned a ton, and I'm ready to dive back in for a second go. This time, with a plan. I'll make some tools as fast as possible. I'll use said tools to craft a campfire, and get some form of base camp going, ideally around some berry bushes. From there, I'll set out to try hunting something for dinner, and in a perfect world, I'll actually manage to survive my first night. Okay, not a bad start. Leaps and bounds better than last time, actually. I even found this thing. Turns out it's a trader wagon, but it seems abandoned, so I left it and continued on my way. Just a few blocks away, I came across my first salmon and killed it using a spear, only to look up and see a fucking bear charging towards me. Thankfully, it gave up pretty quickly, and I continued on my way, heading south in hopes of getting out of the gravel and into some grass. As I reached the grasslands, however, I accidentally startled a wolf that somehow, someway, didn't land a single shot on me while I repeatedly stabbed it with a spear. I knew I was winning the fight though, once it turned and ran. So I tracked it down, finished it off, and looted the wolf for 5 bushmeat. Nearby, I also found a few blueberry bushes and figured this would be a great spot to settle down. I'll even have some neighbors. Well, maybe not. There's so many ruins in this area, I thought I was vacationing in Ohio. Real quick, what the fuck is going on in Ohio? I have never seen so many decrepit buildings falling apart in any city in my life. We passed a town at one point, and there were at least a dozen on one single road. Get your shit together. Okay, back to Vintage Story. While the ruins didn't have anything for me to loot, I did find a shit ton of cattails in the pond next to them, which, to my understanding, can be used as yet another food source. Speaking of food sources, let's build a campfire. To get started, we need dried grass, which can be obtained by taking a knife and slapping some grass with it. Using that dried grass, I placed it on the floor and surrounded it with firewood. From there, I crafted a fire starter kit with another piece of dry grass and 2 sticks. With my fire starter kit, I right-clicked on the campfire, and behold, science.
Yes, science!
The meat you put in the fire all has different cooking temperatures. For the beans for breakfast crowd, we need to heat up to 150 degrees Celsius. For the bacon, eggs, and high cholesterol team out there, that's 302 degrees Fahrenheit, at least according to Google. Eating the cooked bushmeat didn't really fill me up all that much though, which made me nervous considering I was counting on this to last me at least a few days. If I've learned anything from games like Zomboid and Valheim, it's that meals are what keep you fed. So, time to consult the handbook yet again. I can create a pot with pottery and a pit kiln, which is what I'm assuming I need to mine clay for. Using said pot, I can cook meals on a fire and then place them into bowls that can also be crafted with the art of pottery. While waiting for the meat to cook, I looted around 20 cattails to bring back and cook up for yet another food source, only to realize I need the roots of the cattails and not the tails themselves. Not to worry though, those will come up again in a second. For now, I need to build some form of wall to get through the night. So, once again, I present to you, dirt. Ah, safe and sound. So, back to cattails. You can use 10 of them to craft a reed basket, providing 3 more inventory slots. I used all 20 cattails to craft 2 baskets, which should help me with the hunter-gatherer phase. Overnight, I used some dry grass and sticks to craft 2 torches that will burn for 48 hours once lit, allowing me to keep the base well lit and also allowing me to continue exploring in the dark. Right next to my new home, I found a few jars that I broke to find some flax and coal hidden within. While chopping some trees though, I came across some copper scraps lying on the ground, but right after picking them up, I began taking damage, prompting me to sprint back to my dirt wall for the rest of the night. As it turns out, cattails are your most prized resource, at least in the early game. Not only can they be used to weave baskets or cooked into food, but you can also combine them with horsetail to craft a healing poultice. Sure, it's not great, but you get 4 of them per batch, which is half of your health. After full healing, I got started on collecting a ton of dried grass to turn into hay. With my hay blocks, I crafted a bed that totally won't catch on fire if I put it directly beneath a torch, right? As the sun rose on my second day, I had 2 goals to achieve. 1, find more food, and 2, find some clay. Initially, I thought I had another wolf in my grasp after hearing one howl, only to look out and see 2 wolves patrolling together. Now, as much as I would love to rush in and squad wipe the duo, I have a singular flint spear and no armor. I would no doubt be ripped to shreds in seconds. So instead, I dipped out in the opposite direction in hopes of finding some clay nearby. While I didn't find any clay, I did find a hot springs location, along with a few salmon and chickens. Further east, I came across a new crop, turnips. Harvesting them gave me not only a few turnips to eat, but also seeds so I could start my own garden. Next to said turnips, I found a small group of carrots still growing, so I marked both locations and planned to come back in the next few days. Right next to those carrots, I also found a group of bunnies, but was too slow to capture one. There were also some mushrooms in the area, making me really reconsider my base location. Another thing I've noticed in this region is just how many cattail spawns are in the area, allowing me to craft my final 2 reed baskets, adding 6 additional inventory slots. While hunting some chickens in the evening, I noticed a rift out in the distance. Getting close to it spawned in one of these weird little spider guys, so I just noped the fuck out of there, only to almost sprint face first into a bear. Oh, I also found what I assume is another trader wagon, with one of these little guys hanging out next to it, but I'll deal with him another time. Still no clay, but I've got enough food to confidently last all of tomorrow, so I'll take it. While we wait for all my food to cook, I want to talk about nutrition. Okay. Don't ask why I'm glowing. I drank 15 glow sticks and I've never been the same. Okay, welcome back. Where were we? Oh, nutrition. So, you've got a variety of nutrition that you can stockpile from fruit, vegetables, grains, protein, and dairy. While at first glance, it seems like a lesser version of whatever the hell Scum tried to do, it's actually a much better system in my opinion. See, diversifying your nutrition and filling those bars will grant an additional 2.5 HP, with a total boost of 12.5 health. If you're unaware like I was initially, you start with 15 base health, Meaning, if you max your nutrition, you'll end up practically doubling your health just for eating a variety of foods that you would normally consume anyway. As the sun rose on my third day, I finally crafted a bed, allowing me to sleep through the night without having to worry about being mauled by a black bear. Anyway, I got the day started on the right foot after eating poisonous mushrooms and almost dying. Looking back, this should have been obvious. I mean, it literally tells you on the mushroom that it damages your health. On the opposite end of that spectrum, I sniped a fox with a spear, and by sniped I mean I threw a spear like 5 feet, but if it's good enough for the Special Olympics, it's good enough for me. From there, I killed another chicken and got started butchering it, only for another black bear to come waltzing through the space-time continuum to come fuck up my day. After finally making it back to my corpse, I picked up my gear and continued on my way, eventually coming across peat. A quick Google search tells me that peat can be used as a fuel source in a pit kiln, so I dug some of it up for when I eventually find clay. Speaking of clay, yet another day of nothing. I mean, I got some more food, which is nice, but I really just want to find clay. Like, how have I found 3 different trader wagons, but not 1 block of clay yet? Once I was back at base cooking up some food, I took a few minutes to look into it some more, and allegedly, clay spawns in grassy, low-lying areas with moderate to heavy rainfall. I know this is just where my inexperience with the game comes in, with this being my first ever real playthrough, but to me, I'm in a low-lying grassy area, but all I'm finding is sand and gravel. Dog, I discovered gold before I found clay. That's wild. In total, it would take 4 days, but I found it. A whole plethora of red clay to dig up and bring back home. Or I could move my base out here. It's not like I had all that much in it anyway. So, before heading back to my camp, I burned through a flint shovel in an attempt to dig as deep into the hillside as possible. This would be the start of my new home. Eventually, it'll be filled with torches, supplies, and a campfire. But for now, this'll do. If there was ever a sign that it was time to move, I don't think there could be a clearer one than walking back to find a fucking black bear spawn camping the base. I even tried kiting it up to the north and looping around, but found it waiting for me once I made it back. In the end, I chose life and ran back to the new home with plans to revisit the starter camp one day in the future when I shall return to slay the bear and collect my pile of sticks lying on the floor. While waiting out the night, I researched how to make storage crates, only to be told that I need copper tools to do that. Outside of that, I can make storage vessels out of clay. Basically, everything I need comes from clay, making that my top priority for now. Pit kilns are needed to heat up the clay products I make, at least I think. To craft one, I need to place down some clay, dry grass, sticks, and firewood, or peat. Unfortunately, all of my blocks of peat are at the old campsite, so I'll plan to use firewood for now until I can find some more. Alright, big day today. Let's get to work. First things first, I need shovels. I used some of the andesite pieces I'd collected earlier to craft 2 shovel heads, before smacking some bushes for sticks to turn into actual usable shovels. With said shovels, I started off with 2 stacks of red clay, figuring that would be more than enough to learn the basics with. Clay works very similarly to knapping. You drop a piece on the ground, click on it, and a crafting menu opens. But unlike with basic tools, there are multiple options to choose from. You can make bowls, cooking pots, molds for copper tools, molds for anvils, and for most options, there's a single-use one or the option to craft 4 times for bulk crafting. Naturally, I chose the 4 times cooking pots so I can start making actual meals instead of relying on very basic foods like berries. This is where the crafting menu really started to shine for me though. You have to manually add the clay to build out the cooking pots. So, first you need to expand the square, then cut that into 4 pieces. Once you have 4 square pieces, you can start building up the perimeter of what will eventually become 4 cooking pots. I can't stress this enough, but please do not be intimidated by this. You don't have to just do 1x1 cubes the entire time. There's options for 1x1, 2x2, and 3x3, or to just duplicate the previous layer. This is what the duplicate layer feature looks like. It's perfect for crafting items like bowls and cooking pots, where you'd normally have to repeat the same process like 4 times in a row. With the 4 cooking pots all set, I place them in the base while I continue crafting more items. All of them will need to be fired in a pit kiln, but I'd prefer to do all of the sculpting first, and then mass produce the items later on. From there, I took most of the rest of the day to craft clay bowls to eat meals out of, clay crocks to store meals with later on, 4 crucibles so I could smelt metal on the fire, and a clay storage vessel so all of my shit could be tucked neatly out of view instead of scattered on the floor. At this point, I still had around 30 clay left, but was entirely out of storage in my camp, so I dug a bunch of holes in the floor to turn into pit kilns and set off to find some peat. Thankfully, there's a shit ton of it just down by the water to the north, so I grabbed 2 stacks of it. While on my way back home though, I noticed another rift popping up oddly close to my base. I still don't know how to deal with them, or really what they even do, but I figured as long as I kept my distance, I could worry about it another time. For now, I was just focused on pottery. During the process of throwing my items into the ground, this little guy spawned in one of the kiln hole things. Killing him awarded me with rusty gear. No idea what I can do with that yet, but I'm assuming it'll have some value. Turns out I need way more resources than I thought for all the kilns, and given that I don't have any torches right now, I opted to just resume work in the morning. I do really love how chopping the base of a tree brings the entire thing down, compared to Minecraft where you have to chop every log. It also feels like the different types of trees are good for more than just aesthetics, with large trees giving me substantially more sticks than a maple tree. Take that entirely with a grain of salt though, I have no data or proof of anything to back that up, it's just something I noticed while messing around with the 2 tree types. Well, at least they're not bears, right? And now, we play the waiting game, and hope we didn't just gender reveal this entire mountain. While waiting for my pit kilns to do their thing, I crafted a full new set of dogshit tools and set off to forage some items. I have a hoe now, so I'd like to learn how to plant some of my turnips with the hopes of combining those turnips with some meat to make a meal. But before that, there's a thunderstorm brewing, so I used some low, fertile soil to cover my kilns, only to turn around and discover another rift had spawned practically on top of my base. Fuck. Following the tried and true strategy of blocking it out and hoping it goes away on its own, I set off to plant my turnips. Now, I may be an idiot, but if there's one thing I learned from Minecraft, it's that if you plant crops on water, you can effectively automate the process. So, here you go. Next on the to-do list, acquire more food. The best way I could think to go about this was a combination of fishing, cutting cattails, and hunting chickens. I know there's a way to tame chickens, but given that I'm rapidly approaching starvation, that's just something I'll have to explore at a later date. While on my way home that night, I noticed that the portal was seemingly missing, so looks like my strategy actually worked out in the end after all. See, sometimes it does pay to be lazy. While cooking some food that evening, I read up on how to make some basket traps with the hopes of catching a few chickens to start a farm with. Turns out, all I need are some reed chests and a stick. That being said, it might have to wait till tomorrow, since I fucked up and crafted another basket by mistake instead of a chest. I found that spending my nights researching instead of sleeping is the best way to utilize my time, especially when I need to swap out meats and foods in the campfire. Knowing that feathers can be used for arrows, I looked up how to make a bow. Turns out, I need flax twine, which can be made out of flax fibers, which can be looted from drifters, shivers, or bowtorn. The drifters, at least to my knowledge, were those little guys like the one that got stuck in the pit kiln, but I can also find mature flax out in the wild as a plant to harvest. This period of research led to me looking up recipes for logs instead of just using them for firewood. Turns out, I had everything I needed for a crude door, so I crafted one of those and finally replaced my dirt block at the entrance. Speaking of firewood, it's good for more than just what its name implies. You can also use some, in conjunction with dry grass and a knife, to make some improvised armor. I have no idea how good 55% protections is compared to other armor sets, but I know it's definitely better than no armor, so we'll keep it for now. Since I can't mine copper yet on account of not having a pickaxe, I found myself once again consulting the handbook. Turns out I can craft a wooden pan and simply pan for copper nuggets instead. So, here's the plan for day 7. Farm up some cattails, use said cattails to craft a reed chest, and combine that chest with a stick to make a reed basket trap. Once the trap is crafted, I will place it over where I saw those chickens a few hours ago to see if I can get lucky. While waiting for that to finish, I'll start panning for copper near my turnips, and whenever I get bored of that, I'll just start fishing for a few extra salmon. So, this was my life. While panning for copper though, I noticed something. Those cattail roots don't seem to have a spoil date. All I've heard about Vintage Story is how difficult winter is and how you need to be constantly stockpiling food to survive it. In theory, couldn't I just acquire mountains of cattail roots and then cook them into meals as needed? Is that the play? Anyway, back to panning. That was short-lived after a quick handbook search told me I needed 20 copper for one pickaxe head, and after spending the rest of the morning panning in the water, I have 4. Allegedly, I'm supposed to use a combination of panning and sheer luck to find bits of copper lying on the floor to help me get started. I'll worry about that tomorrow though, because for now, I have more important matters to attend to, like chasing down and killing another wolf. Just in time to fend off starvation for one more day. While grabbing my completed pottery projects that evening, I came across another surface drifter, managing to kill him fairly easily. Looting his corpse gave me a bit of flax, and just like that, we're one step closer to crafting a bow. You'd think you'd be safe from the rogue Jehovah's Witness out here, but apparently not. Those weren't the only two though. I spent most of the night warding off drifters trying to contact me about my car's extended warranty, looting them for literal scraps. Oh, well that's new. The Bowtorn were also fairly easy to kill, provided you can dodge some of their shots. They turn and run away when you get within melee distance of them, allowing you to just kind of stab away at them until they fall over. Anyway, back to my pottery. The crocks, from my understanding, are used to store items for longer term usage. The vessel, though, that's what I'm most excited about. Think of these as the storage chest of Vintage Story. You can cram whatever you want into them, which for a loot goblin like me, really helps to keep the base clean. Next up, you've got cooking pots. Should be self-explanatory, but you can place them on top of a campfire and combine multiple ingredients into one meal. We'll mess around with that more tonight. Then you've got your bowls. To my knowledge, you use the bowls to grab food portions out of the completed cooking pot. I think. Again, we'll test that out tonight. And finally, we've got crucibles. From what I read about them, you also need to place these on a campfire, and it increases the heat of the items inside, allowing you to effectively smelt down copper, which can then be combined with a mold to make ingots or other items. Speaking of copper, it's time to go find some. Hopefully. At the very least, it gives me an excuse to take a stroll back through the plains and revisit all those turnip and carrot plants I'd marked a few days ago. Look at all those little guys down there. So, remember how it took like 4 days to find clay? Well, it took less than 4 in-game hours to find copper. While walking along the small pond area on my way back to the markers, I noticed some copper on the ground. This is where those hundreds of hours of Valheim come into play though, because digging directly underneath the nugget revealed a full copper node for me to mine out. Probably the luckiest moment of the playthrough thus far. A few hours later, I came across a massive array of red wine caps and field mushrooms, both of which can be used in several stews and other meals. So I took a few minutes to harvest all of them before continuing, setting up for a fantastic evening. Most of the vegetables I'd marked earlier still weren't ready for harvest, but I did see some raccoons run up and take a berry off a bush, so I moved my trap next to those bushes to see if I could get lucky. Aside from that, copper wasn't the only thing I found today. In the exact same manner, I came across 3 sets of tin nuggets and some sand. Digging around the area didn't reveal a node through it, but it was still a nice find. To cap off my adventure, I found and harvested some spelt, giving me 4 grain and some seeds to replant next to my turnips. Now as it turns out, the grain can be used on a trap as bait, so I left the trap by the bushes for the night, with plans to come back in the morning. Worst case, I'll build another trap and set it back by where those chickens were. When it comes to cooking, the easiest recipe for me to make is fish soup. It requires 1 piece of fish meat, 1 to 3 vegetables, and 1 liter of water, which can be grabbed from any pond or lake with a bowl in 1 liter increments. For my recipe, I did 1 raw salmon, 1 turnip, and 1 mushroom. This is the outcome. The next tree I want to explore is juicing things. I know, going on a real health nut kick right now. But creating a fruit press allows me to make jams and eventually wine, so I can start chugging Game of Thrones volumes of it. Before I do any of that though, I want to get the rest of these crops planted. I love how the kilns double as the best form of base defense currently. Shout out Holes. Great movie too. With the crops planted, I returned home and got started on a new pottery project. I need more storage, hence more vessels, but I also need ways to store water. Well, clay jugs can hold 3 liters, while a bowl only holds 1. So, if I wanted to mass produce fish soup, I just need 1 jug of water, as opposed to 3 bowls of it. While working on the vessels though, I heard a rooster up on the hill with me. Looks like pottery class will have to wait because I really want a fucking chicken. With a new trap crafted and placed, all I have to do now is wait. Back to pottery. Looks like the trap worked. We now have 1 whole rooster. Just gonna keep it locked up in there for another day or so until I figure out where to put it. Until then, we feast. Sadly, while researching how to corral chickens, I read that they need a hen box, which requires planks to make. To make planks, you need a saw, and saws require blades. On the bright side though, it did lead to me discovering that I can make better armor with some resin, pelts, and firewood, so I'll be on the lookout for resin in the coming days. The big plan today is to make a small chicken coop. I read that while you should use a trough, they aren't required, and I can actually get away with dumping grass on the floor for now. Additionally, I only need a hen box for hens to lay eggs. But if I just need to keep 2 chickens alive until then, a pen and dried grass will do just fine. It just means that after this, I'll need to hard pivot to farming out copper as quickly as possible. I'm gonna need more material. Alright, I ended up using dirt for now, but I think it'll do the trick all the same. So, time to go get the chicken. Oh. Okay. Honestly, this was probably for the best. I guess I'm totally not just coping or anything. With the rest of my day, I gathered up sticks to get my kilns going again, and hunted some animals to try and gather up as much food as possible. Naturally, this led to a wild chase sequence between a wolf and myself, only for me to practically walk directly into a bear. Again. That wasn't all I ran into though. I also found some resin from a leaking pine tree and scooped that up before running into another copper node that I marked on the map for later. From today's haul, I'm walking away with 3 red meat, 5 bushmeat, 5 poultry, some more mushrooms, some fat, resin, 57 more feathers, and 2 copper nuggets. Not a bad day. Turns out bushmeat can't really be used in any recipes, at least at the moment. It can be used to make a recurve bow though, so that's neat. Red meat, however, can be used in soups, so that'll be what I use that on. Same with the poultry. I ended up using one of my crocks for the red meat soup. One single crock can hold several servings of food, which is great for me. That means I'll be able to bulk prepare meals and store them using some of the fat I've harvested off of the wolves. Obviously, the red meat soup is going to be a little bit better than the poultry soup, but those macros are pretty damn solid if you ask me. The following morning, I placed all my new vessels and water jugs inside, and bit the bullet and panned for copper, literally all day. Why? Well, because I need 12 more, and at most, I'm getting 2 nuggets per node that I find. If I did the math right, and I probably didn't, but if I did, it'd be faster for me to pan for the remaining 12 than it would for me to luck into 6 nodes. In total, it would take just under 10 in-game hours of panhandling for me to acquire the remaining 12 copper nuggets needed for a pickaxe head. But our smelting journey is only just beginning. Sure, you need 20 copper nuggets, but to get the heat required to smelt copper, I'll need charcoal, and a pair of wooden tongs for some reason because heat doesn't apply to them. Okay, let's get to charcoal burning. The guide says to make an 11 by 11 by 11 space, but a 2 by 2 by 2 should work just fine as well. So, looks like I'll be using the chicken coop for now. I feel like that Sean Gatz guy on TikTok who has all those half-finished builds out in Arizona, but instead of swindling a bunch of Gen Z TikTok brains into buying me a Lambo, I'm just trying to figure out an incredibly in-depth survival game. Anyway, I'm supposed to fill my pit with stacks of firewood. Easy enough. It's supposed to be airtight, because if there's any space, the wood will turn to ash, which would be incredibly depressing, considering this is quite literally all of my firewood. So, once everything is stacked nice and tight, you're supposed to cover 3 of the 4 piles, leaving 1 pile uncovered. With that uncovered stack, you build a campfire on top of it, then quickly cover everything. If you do it right, it smokes normally. If you do it wrong, you will hear the burning. I think it's working? I'll check back tomorrow. In the meantime, I still need to craft a pickaxe mold and get a kiln built out for it. While we wait for the charcoal kiln and pit kiln to work their magic, there are a few additional items on the agenda that need to be checked off. For starters, a pair of wooden tongs. To make them, I need a coil of rope, which can be crafted using 3 wild vines. Last time I saw them, they were growing on trees, so the first order of business is to find a tree that's got some vines on it. Most of the trees in the immediate area had moss growing on them, but thankfully, I was able to find some wild vines growing on those mossy spots. And not only that, but tons of copper just to the south of my base. To think I've been hunting in the north all this time and there's been a potentially massive node just beneath me. Regardless, I still had a few hours to kill, so I found and harvested some wild onions, checked on the garden, harvested the turnips, and replanted what I could. Unfortunately, I only ended up getting about 50% of the harvest due to the heat stunting my turnips' growth. But even with that, I still walked away with 16 turnips and 8 seeds, with more on the way. During the afternoon, I finally worked up the courage to try hunting a ram, and I gotta say, rams are the play. This one gave me 10 red meat, some hide, fat, and a bunch of bones. They're also much easier to deal with than wolves in my experience. Pair that with the fact that they drop way better food, and why the hell would I ever hunt wolves again? After restocking my firewood supply, it was finally time to check in on my charcoal pit. Not bad, not bad. In total, I was able to shovel up 57 units of charcoal. These not only burn for almost double the time length as firewood, but they heat up to well over 1000 degrees Celsius, which is exactly what we need to smelt down some copper. So, to do this, all you have to do is light a fire with coal. Then take your crucible and place it on the campfire. It works exactly the same as a cooking pot, but for metals instead of dead animals. Once all that copper is smelted, you have to use tongs to pick up the 1000 degree crucible. This is what happens if you don't. With the tongs, you can pour your molten copper into the mold and wait for it to cool. And just like that, we're officially a blacksmith. To end the day, I turned all that raw meat into a variety of soups to get me through what's sure to be an eventful mining expedition. Well, it may have taken 13 days, but I finally achieved something I can typically do in a day in Minecraft. Time to mine some copper. With both nodes in the south cleared out, I managed to haul in 31 chunks of 15-piece copper and 26 chunks of 20-piece copper. Up next, I need a hammer to extract the copper nuggets from these chunks. For a copper hammer, I'll need more nuggets and a clay hammer mold, meaning we've got some work to do. Starting with panning for 10 more copper. I know it's boring, but it's the fastest way for me to get 10 nuggets, and if everything goes smoothly here, this should be the last time I ever have to do this. Once I obtained 20 copper nuggets, I set them to smelt in the crucible, and got to work gathering up more clay to craft a hammer mold. There isn't much I really feel like doing right now while waiting for the pit kiln to work its magic, so until then, it's back to mining. During this expedition though, I managed to find some quartz, but you need bronze to mine that, and we're stuck with copper for now. I shouldn't even say stuck, I just fucking got here. Anyway, I mined up the last of the copper nodes that I had marked, and ended up spending way too much time hunting for resin and spearfishing, before finding one more massive node to mine out. Alright, no idea what that means, but I guess I'm about to learn. Until that decides to show up, I'm just gonna keep focusing on the copper grind, starting with making some more molds. Oh, okay. So that's what a temporal storm is. The fuck? Did I get transported into the Upside Down? Where's Hopper? Probably harassing Millie Bobby Brown, but still. I tried to fight off the mobs around the base, but was very quickly overpowered, resulting in me performing a masterclass tactical reposition back inside the confines of my little hilltop home. While we hang out here and wait for the storm to pass though, I can explain what a temporal storm is. This is straight from the wiki. By default, temporal storms occur once every 10 to 20 days, getting 10% more common each storm, capping at 100% more frequent, making them appear closer to 5 to 15 days. Players will get an early warning about an oncoming temporal storm through the chat box in the bottom left. This warning will be issued in 2 phases. During a storm, the player's vision will be severely obscured due to the high winds, rust-colored fog, dust storms, and visual effects, such as warping. Players will see visions of turning cogs and skeletal creatures like that big-ass dinosaur thing. More powerful varieties of drifters that normally only spawn underground can also be spawned on the surface during a storm. Notably, the double-headed drifter can only spawn during a temporal storm and can spawn on the surface. I guess there's an option in these settings to allow you to sleep through the storms, but considering I didn't change any of the settings, I don't have that enabled, so I'm stuck waiting it out. Alrighty then. Fun fact that I just learned, that cog in the bottom center of my UI displays my temporal stability. If it's spinning clockwise like it is right now, that indicates a stable area. If it's counterclockwise, that indicates an unstable area. The faster it spins, the more stable or unstable. If it fully depletes though, you take damage every 4 seconds. It seems to regenerate itself while spinning clockwise though, until coming to a complete stop once it's full. Anyway, back to pottery. I crafted clay molds for axe heads, knives, and a shovel to go with the hammer and pickaxe head molds, and set them in their own respective kilns before getting started on an anvil. Okay, do you want to see how much copper I smashed out of all those nodes? How about just shy of 400 nuggets? And we thought 20 was a lot. And of those 400 nuggets, they can be smelted into 1,870 units, which is more than enough to craft me a full set of copper tools. Really everything except for a copper saw blade. To make a saw blade, I'll need to smelt some ingots and then create a saw at the anvil. Well, literally everything I need to progress is currently burning in a pit kiln, so instead, the big focus right now for me was hunting. I really just need some more pelts to make better armor and other gear, because all of my other pelts rotted away. I know there's a few bears in the area, and while I don't want to fuck with them, I have no problems yeeting spears into rams. With those two large pelts, I can gather up some firewood and combine those two with some resin to craft nothing. Because you need to first rub a bunch of fat on the hide to oil it up and then let the curing process take form. That happens passively, so you can just leave it in your inventory and check back on it later. That'll turn the hides into pelt, which is what we actually need for armor and warmer clothing for winter. While waiting for the hides to cure into pelts, I noticed that most of my pit kilns were complete. So I grabbed the molds out of those and used a little over half of my molten copper to start crafting an anvil, some ingots, and a full set of copper tools, including a second pickaxe and hammer. Looks like my turnips are also ready to harvest as well, so I added 26 more to my inventory, along with 7 more seeds. The soil here is pretty depleted though, so to give it some time to regenerate nitrogen, I opted for a new patch to grow on the other side of the pond. Okay, back to the molds. We have a problem. Namely, I don't think I can place copper bars onto the copper anvil. Upon further inspection, I can use the bars on here, they just need to be bars first. Currently, I have 2 copper ingots. Those need to be heated in a forge to turn into bars, which can then be used on the anvil to make a saw blade, which will subsequently solve all of my problems. So, next step, find a way to make a forge. Looks like I just need cobblestone, which I can make with pretty much any material. I have like 4 stacks of andesite, so I started with that and combined it with red clay to make cobblestone. With said cobblestone, I was able to craft a forge. Honestly, pretty simple. I was expecting a bit more pain and suffering with the whole process, but I'll take it. Alright, I'm gonna say it. Blacksmithing, or working the forge and anvil, might be the most satisfying experience in Vintage Story. It's similar to knapping or molding. You've got your blueprint outline, right? But unlike knapping, where you just remove or add the squares, you control which direction the excess metal goes in, allowing you to literally shape out the item you're hammering away at. You can move the pieces up, down, left, or right, and split the excess material at the end, and I'm completely obsessed with it. So much so that I tried my hand at smithing some shears, only to royally fuck them up. It's a bit more complex than just duplicating layers of material, but I'm looking forward to practicing it a bit more. Thankfully, you can always just add more material and fill out the spots that you fuck up, even if it means having to scrap the excess copper. With my saw and shears, I headed inside and turned a few maple logs into 2 stacks of boards. Wooden boards can be used for just about anything I could possibly want right now. A better bed, armor, storage chests, shields, troughs, buckets, a fruit press, shelves, racks. Like I said, pretty much anything useful that will drastically improve my life can now be crafted. And I'll get started on that right after culling the ever-increasing homeless population surrounding my hill. After a near-death experience and dropping property value, I harvested 32 carrots and got to work cooking more soups after realizing I'd let my red meat come dangerously close to spoiling in storage. While those meals cook, I want to get started actually building a base. For too long have I lived in the side of a hill. Today, we build. Starting with demolishing the chicken coop. Don't worry, I'll build a better one another time. In its place, I started on the outline of what will eventually become my forge. I'll be moving the literal forge in here, along with the anvil, all my molds, a new kiln, and a charcoal burning pit section somewhere. Don't worry, so I'll get cleaned up once we get some shelves going, but until those are built, the molds can sit on the floor. Now it's time for the fun part. Terraforming. See this puddle? This will eventually become my garden. The plan is to build a little treehouse on stilts over the top of it, but there's this big-ass mountain of dirt in the way, and someone's gotta move it. This took several days to complete, and honestly, I'm not even sure if it was worth it. I hope it'll be, but only time will tell. Anyway, you can combine some boards into planks, which is what I'm planning to build my house out of. I'm gonna need more logs, though. With those logs, I built 4 pillars 7 tiles high. I might go higher, but I think 7 is high enough to get the point across. From there, I connected the 4 pillars using the maple planks, along with a built-in staircase to what'll eventually become the front door. Also, shout out shears, by far the easiest way to farm out sticks. Over the next few days, I continued chopping down trees, turning those logs into planks, and filling in the floor, walls, and even adding a slanted roof to the structure. By day 20, I'd practically lost my entire copper saw, but it was all worth it. For this. Does it look like shit? Of course it does, but it's better than anything I've ever built in Minecraft, so deal with it. Now I just gotta piece it together. Time to go chop some more trees, I guess. I think this is a good place to stop for today. I'm almost through August, which means autumn is almost upon us, and winter is officially coming. Because of that, I need your help. I've heard that winter is the most difficult aspect of Vintage Story, and I have no idea what I'm walking into. So, this seems like a great place to stop and ask, and check in with you all, and get some feedback. What am I doing well? What am I doing wrong? Am I missing some blatantly obvious component of the game? What am I doing that's absolutely infuriating from a veteran's perspective on the game? And most importantly, what are some ways I can begin prepping for winter? With that, thank you all so much for watching. This has been an insanely enjoyable experience up to this point, and it's reminded me of just how rewarding it can be to go into a game completely blind and discover it for yourself. But with where I'm at currently, I think it's time to phone a friend, or friends. On top of that, I want to give a very special thank you to all the YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who've spent the better part of 2 years harassing me into making a video on Vintage Story. Turns out bullying is an effective strategy after all. Until next time, I appreciate you all. Go call a loved one, especially around this time of year. Check in on your friends, even if you think it's gay. And as always, thanks for stopping by.